Hello guys, in this video I am going to go through how to make a rocket in Minecraft Create Northstar mod. We are going to go through all the components that are necessary for the construction of the rocket. So let's start. First of all, let's start with the basics. You will have to craft all these items if you're playing in survival. And the most basic ones are, we could say these two. Okay, so let's start. First of all, you will need a book with the coordinates of the planet to which you want to go. The planets can be the Moon, Mars, Mercury, or Venus. These are the ones that are added currently. So, how to make the coordinates book? You will need the astronomy table and the telescope. At night, so let's set the time tonight. You will have to go to your telescope, look for the planet that you want. In this case, we will do the moon. We'll have to click on it. There we go. And we have to press the plus sign. Once we do that, we will now have astronomical reading of the moon. Okay, so once we have done it this 3 times, it's very important to do it on different days, not on the same one. Well, in this case, it would be on different nights because it has to be at night because the telescope doesn't work, as you can see. Once we have that, we put the 3 readings and we will get the book of the correspondent planet. That would be one step. Now let's move on to the controls. The rocket, for its controlling, will need 2 or 3 essential parts depending on the planet that we are going to go. So, for instance, if we are going to the moon, we will only need these two, the rocket station and the rocket controls. We won't need the interplanetary navigator because we are not going between planets. If we are going between Earth and Mars, for example, we will need this. Or if, for example, we are going from Mercury to Mars, we will need this. Okay? So for the most basic one, we won't need this, but I will explain all of them in this video. So let's start with the rocket station. After explaining all the components needed, I will make a demonstration and show you how to build your own rocket. And let's see how to do it in every step. Okay, so let's go back to the function of this block. This block is essentially to assemble the rocket. We put the book of the planet that we want to go, and it will show us how much fuel do we need, the fuel cost in this case. And with the plus sign, we can't assemble it now because obviously we haven't got a rocket, but later on we will see how this works also. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. The rocket's controls doesn't do anything right now. It needs to be in a rocket, and this basically allows you to do the countdown to go to another planet and to slow down. As I said previously, the interplanetary navigator doesn't do much. It allows you to go between planets, and that's all. Now let's pass on to the next part. The jet engines, which provide thrust to the rocket and consume fuel, which has to be in a fluid tank. Fluid tanks can be different sizes. They can be double and triple sizes. We can see that they are like stackable in a sort of way, maximum 3 by 3. And obviously, the bigger they are, the more capacity they can hold of the fuel. Okay, so this would be the main purpose of these two. Now let's move on to the different types of fuels that we have. There isn't much choice here. The basic fuels are hydrocarbons. On the other hand, the liquid hydrogen version is a late game resource and it's more complicated to obtain it. The efficiency, obviously, of the hydrogen is is much better, but it's more difficult to obtain it. And by the way, it's pretty glitched, so if you want to use hydrogen, I would highly recommend to use a specific create version, which is 0.5.1 F. Anyways, I will leave it in the description so that you will have it. And then I was tinkering around and found out that liquid methane can also be used as fuel. However, this is, I don't know if it's possible to obtain it in survival. I believe it's maybe in a planet or something. I'm not sure. I know it can be used as fuel and it's worse than hydrogen, but better than hydrocarbon. So you can keep that in mind. Then there is another alternative that is the gas version of hydrogen that is not so good as liquid hydrogen, but if you're playing on another version of Create that is not that I mentioned previously, you can use this type of fuel because this one does not glitch out. I will do a separate video on how to work with the fuel over here. Okay, then also we will pass on to talk about the spacesuits, but before I want to talk about the material of the rocket that we will build because it's pretty important. We got to use metal-based materials. So let's say if we go to Northstar items, Northstar blocks, we get a loads of different types of materials such as platings, slabs, and so on. The most basic one would be the iron one. Then we have the steel, the Martian steel version, and the block with most heat resistance is tungsten, which you can get from mercury. You you can use any variant. The properties do not change if the material is the same. The heat resistance is pretty important because you need it in order to go to other planets. So you have to keep in mind that. However, you don't need the rocket to be entirely made of this. You can put other blocks in between. However, it has to be in a certain proportion. Now let's pass to talk about the different types of spacesuits. So we have basically two types of spacesuit. We have the iron type, the normal and the cheap version, the early game one, and then we have this marginal steel version that is the late game one. So the protection obviously changes, but the capacity of oxygen does not. And how do we charge it with oxygen? You only have to take the iron, in this case, let's say we are using this variant, you only have to take the iron spacesuit chest piece. You do not have to take all the leggings, the boots, or the helmet. And you will need the oxygen filler. The oxygen filler will have to be fed up with oxygen, which can be done with different ways. One of them is by an oxygen concentrator, which is this device over here. It will need rotational power, which you can get by different ways. Obviously, if it's faster, well, it will produce more oxygen per tick. And we will need to pump that from here. You can see there is a connection. You will have to pump it to the oxygen filler. And when we put the chess piece here, we will hear a click sound, and that means it's all full. As you heard, it is obviously full because I am creative. If you're in survival and craft these things, it won't be full. So you will have to do it. And each time that you go to space and come back, if you want to have it full, you will have to do that. By the way, the time of this is 33 minutes, so you can be in other planets for 33 minutes. But obviously, if you have more chess pieces, so you can be more time, you just have to remember to change them. So now we have talked about all the important components of the rocket. Now let's go and build one ourselves. So let's start building a rocket. I will make a simple cube design in order to test the device basically. And let's see how it works. I'm putting the jet engines here. Now I'm putting the fluid tanks, which will need fuel. Remember that in survival, you cannot just put the fuel as in creative. I can do this in creative, but I cannot do that in survival. In survival, I will need an item drain, which is this thing over here, which you can put any liquid, and you will need pipes and pumps. We can put a pump over here and lead this to here. Obviously, I need to change the direction, which I can do with a wrench. I will put a cog over here and a motor. And this will give it, rotational power. Okay. And I can, let's see if it works. Yep. I can put here the liquid, and as you can see, it drains. Okay. Let me set the time today. Okay. So once we have all the fuel, I'm gonna speed up the process in order to not make the video very long. Okay, now it's full. We can get rid of this, and let's continue. I will make this from tungsten so we can do some tests, but basically you get the point. We have to do everything has to be covered, but not everything has to be necessarily made from metal. You can decorate it and make some cool designs. Okay, so let's do something like this. Okay, so I have made a pretty simple rocket. Uh, you can be more creative than me. Of course, this is just to test out what we have recently learned, so there is no need for complication. I would say this is pretty good. Okay, so let's go and see the interior. An important thing that I didn't mention before is that you need a special door. If you will need obviously a door, but it has to be a special type, which is an space door, I believe. Let me check. Iron space door, yes. And you have to put this in your entrance because this door specifically prevents leaks of any kind so that your rocket can work. Okay, let me put some glowstone here so that we have a little bit of light. Okay, there we go. Let's light up the area a little bit. There we go. It's a bit dark in here, isn't it? Okay, so let's put the main things. As we said, we need the rocket controls, the rocket station, and we do not need, in this case, the interplanetary navigator, but we can put it in here so we have it for future tests. We will also need a seat. Okay, so we can put some of them here, and the finer part will be to glue the rocket together so that the game knows what is considered the rocket. So I will do it in parts like this. Okay, I will glue this together just like so. I'll do this, I'll do this, and I will do just like this. Now we have all the rocket glued. We can check it by doing like this. Yeah, everything is green, so we can test if it works. We have fuel, which we have the jet engines, which are here exactly. The space door. We have a little cozy design. I'm gonna change it a little bit. I think it can look more interesting like that. And there we have it. So let's move to the interior. We have to put in the rocket station, we have to put our book, the one that we need. Here it says the estimated fuel cost. We can assemble. And in the chat, oops, it looks like something is not working. Let me check that. Now we got it. I think. Yes. So in the chat, you will see the fuel cost, the current supply, which is 72,000, the estimated return cost, because remember, the cost changes because the planets are moving, so it's pretty realistic in this sense, the game, this mod. And we can see that we have shielding 2340, and we just needed 184, so we have plenty of heat shielding. Then also the required engines, which depend on the planet, and the current engine count, that is one more than necessary. Perfect. The oxygen size, and it says that cockpit it's not sealed or too large. Let's see. Let's try again. And when we have this blue message, it means that everything is perfect. We can sit down, check that we have the spacesuit on. I will put it in a second. And once we have everything prepared, we can right-click the rocket controls. It will say now controlling rocket, and we have to press space to begin launch sequence. We can go in third person in order to see everything, and make sure to make the sound a little bit lower because it is pretty noisy. make sure that the and that means that you won't be able to make a proper landing and you will crash. Hold space to slow down. Just do what it says. We can already see the planet moving, and we are. And as you can see, we are here on the moon already. So I hope you enjoyed the video and see you next time.